All right, so as you can see me in this video, it's a little bit moody, a little bit dark in here. But this is the purpose of the video because if you have recently bought a Canon R7 or if you have a crop sensor camera that's similar to the R7, usually with crop sensor cameras, they're pretty bad in low light. So usually for the ISO, when it comes to this particular camera or any crop sensor camera, um, we're kind of scared to kind of push this to the limit when it comes to, using the function on here for the ISO, because usually the videos become very, very grainy. But in this video, we're going to actually test that theory and see how far we can go with low light performance of the Canon R7 and if you should test it out yourself. So let's get right into it. And hopefully this should surprise you when it comes to, this test model for low light performance. So let's get to it. So before we get started, we're actually going to kind of go to school a little bit. I understand I'm saying ISO and everything like that, and a lot of people are wondering, okay, what does ISO, what does it mean? Like, how does it pertain to your camera? When it comes to ISO, it actually affects how the sensor is actually capturing and taking in light. If you actually look into the camera, or if you look into the sensor, rather, it's a little bit difficult because I actually have this curtain shut because I have it set up to where you can't see the sensor. But behind this little black curtain, you actually see the sensor. Based on this sensor is going to determine how much light is going to go into the sensor so it can actually push out and go into the lens. Obviously, the bigger the sensor, the more lights that's going to go into the camera body, that's going to push through the lens. So you'll actually be able to see how bright or how, dark or dim your object is going to be. So in this demonstration, we are going to be using my cinema lens. I pretty much have one practical light, and I do kind of adjust the practical lighting to see how the imagery will look with less light and more light, and bumping up the ISO. So I'm only using just one light to kind of support, this video. But as you see in the voiceovers, you're going to understand, like, okay, based off of each section of the ISO from this camera, using the lenses that I'm using, I can use this to my advantage when I'm in a real world scenario. So if you have any questions pertaining to anything within this video, just drop them down in the comment section. I'll answer every single question to the best of my ability. But without further ado, let's get into the voiceovers. So starting at the bottom, we have the ISO from 100 to 400. As expected, this is going to be the cleanest image when it comes to the camera. This is like the cleanest image you're going to get. As you can see on the screen, it's really, really dark. I do have a practical light in the background to kind of help support the camera, or to help to support the sensor, just so I can kind of demonstrate what the image will look like at ISO 100. But like I said, between 100 and 400, this is like the cleanest you're going to be able to get. Obviously the blacks on the lens, they're going to be very, very deep. The text is going to be very, very sharp. If you want to be able to light your scene, you can keep it this way. But in my suggestion, if you want the cleanest image, you got to have a little bit more lighting pertaining to, your subject in this scenario. I only have one light, so it's pitch black. You're not really going to see much, but you obviously can see a little bit behind the scene. And in regards to my focal length, I have a 16 mil on here. Since it is a crop sensor, it's going to act as a 24. I have my shutter speed at 1/50, and I have my aperture at 2.8. So as you go up, we're going to push it up to 200. You can see a little bit now when it comes to the lens, or the cinema lens that I have. As you can see, you also see the keyboard and you see the mouse, see a little bit of the background. Again, that made a huge difference for, 200 down to 100. But now we're going to try to push it even further. Let's see how we look at 300 or 320. So we're at 320. Now, again, since I only have one light, one practical light in the background, this is what you get for 320. So if you kind of understand it now, the more, if you have like more practical lights within your scene or subject, you don't have to bump up your ISO as much. But with me only having one light, I have to pretty much allow the sensor to pretty much work, because with one light, again, if you go back to 100 ISO, it was really dark. 200 was a little bit better, but it was still dark. We're at 320 and it's a little bit better, but since the lens is strictly black and it only has a little bit of coloring here and there, it's still dark. So now let's push it to 400. All right, 400, still looking good. You can see a little bit better opposed to 320, but that is the difference between ISO 100 to ISO 400. If you wanted to keep it at 400 for your ISO, again, you're still going to have a clean image. Just add more practical lighting or a little bit of backlighting to your subject, depending on your scenario. If you are in any type of pitch black of anything, whether you're outside or, you know, whatever your scenario is, have a flash, have some type of light, because again, with crop sensor cameras, you know, they don't bring in a lot of light compared to full frame cameras. So you're gonna need a little bit more accessories or material to support whatever you're shooting. Now, we're gonna actually bump it up a little bit more. We're gonna actually test it from ISO 800 to 1600. Now the image is gonna get a little bit more brighter. It may look okay. Again, that's just based on your lighting scenario. What I'm going to do, my practical light in the background is a little bit more brighter than usual, so I'm actually going to bring it down just a little bit to kind of support the 800 to 1600 theory, or, you know, range. And we're going to bump it up with the camera to see how this will look at 800 ISO. So that's 800 ISO. Now, again, I had to bring down the practical light in order to support this, but if I were to bump up the practical light, you see a little bit more within your image. It's a tad bit softer in regards to like the light, and also too, you know, you gotta make sure that your subject's in focus, of course. But I mean, even with the light really, really bright in that 800 ISO, it's still fairly clean, you know, not gonna hold you. You kind of saw the difference with the practical light at low light with the ISO up, and now you're seeing the ISO up with the practical light also up at its max. So that's how it looks at 800 ISO. And, you know, we'll just bump it up to 16 just to kind of save it. But that's where we're at 16. So, again, not bad. Now, if we bring down this practical light, it still looks good. The imagery still looks good. I like it. Now, that's at it at its lowest. But you can still see, you know, the camera lens, the cinema lens. It may not be as sharp, but, I mean, from a far distance at a 16 mil, that's not bad. So we'll keep it at this, pertaining to, you know, the lighting. I'm going to keep it at this at the whole way. But that's 1600 when it comes to the ISO. So now we're at the tipping point. We're actually going to go at 3200. I've never really gone this far pertaining to light when it comes to this camera. So I'm a little nervous, but we'll see what 3200 is looking like. Now that's 3200. I didn't change anything with the practical light. There may be a tad bit of grain in here. It might be a little bit of fizzy movement or whatnot. But with the light being low, with this being at 3200, that's not bad. And again, the lights are off besides this practical light. So for 3200, that's not bad at all. Still want to be careful because obviously you'll still have noise within the shot. This is just how I'm seeing it on camera. I don't know how it will look in post-production, but this is how I'm seeing it. So 3200, not bad at all. Now we're gonna hit 6400, and again, we don't know how this is really gonna look, but we'll test it out. Now this is 6400. It's a little bit bright. You can tell there's grain in there, because obviously we're towards the max. So if you're looking at the the LCD screen, it may look very, very clean, but I guarantee you if I were to pitch and zoom in, it's going to look very, very fuzzy. But this is at 6400. Again, it's not bad pertaining to it being a crop sensor camera, but this is 6400. And finally, we are going to hit 12,800. And we're going to, again, this is really, really, really for emergency purposes. I don't even see why anybody would want to do 12,800, with a crop sensor camera, but we're going to test that out. All right. And there you have it. That is 12,800 ISO. Again, I have my aperture at 2.8. So I have everything completely wide open. Aperture is at 2.8. ISO is at 12,800. My shutter speed is at 1/50th. I'm shooting at 24 frames per second. Everything's looking, little grainy, washed, bright. I'm even going to try to turn this light down a bit, and that's what it looks like with the light all the way down. That's what it looks like at 12,800. If you zoom in, obviously you're going to see all that fuzziness and graininess and all that. But honestly, even though this will be my last resort, this isn't bad for a crop sensor camera at 12,800. So honestly, unless you're filming something that has a lot of light, a lot of light support, I would avoid it. So yeah, that is the low light test when shooting at ISO 100, all the way to 12,800. So after reviewing, is the Canon R7 bad in low light? Surprisingly, it's pretty good in low light. Now granted, this is more of a controlled environment, so it's a little bit different, but based off of my, analysis on everything, you can actually use this camera if you have just enough light to support whatever your scene is. I was able to still get good imagery between ISO 400 up until like 1600. So between 4 to 16 was more of my sweet spot. ISO 100 was a little bit darker than what I expected. Even with the practical light and a little bit of, the light that was coming from, the hallway in my house. But, just having it between, I'll say 4 to 16, I was able to actually get a good shot pertaining to the cinema lens. Between the aperture and the ISO, just working those two together and being able to toggle to see what looks better based off of which, just playing around and adjusting the numbers, it actually makes, my scene a little bit more presentable and actually makes it easier for me to create. That's pretty much it, I guess, pertaining to the low light performance when it comes to the Canon R7. Get a very good lens pertaining to this as well. I have a 16 on here, but I also have a 50, and I also have this cinema lens. So I'm able to control the light as much as I can based off my scenario. So if I was you, I would cop a 16, a 50, if you want to go with the prime lenses, and also they're affordable as well. So you can go, to Amazon, or you can go, to B&H Photo, whatever it may be, and get, some budget lenses. So like I said, I'll get a 16, a 50. I got a 24 cinema lens from Serirai. There's a lot of different options that you can go with to get the best performance when it comes to the low light. So, but that's the end of this video. Thank you for you know, obviously catching this video or visiting. And I actually have more videos that's going to be coming soon pertaining to this camera, obviously these lenses, and we are going to just pretty much build our content up as we go. So if that's something that you enjoy, that's something that you want to be able to get into, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.